Michael Elise has gone to Bayern Munich. The hunt is on to find the right wing forward for all Premier League clubs, not just Newcastle United. Can Newcastle get their man before the others do? And who is that man going to be? Let's find out right now on Toon Tactics TV, folks. All right, guys, I went straight into it, put the pictures up of the guys that I'm going to be looking and analysing first of all. So as we're looking at the right wing forward position, here are the names that we're going to be looking at, because these have been identified by the media, social media, mainstream media, as some of the names Newcastle have been looking at and discussing and thinking about making a move for. And there's rumours some of these names have already been made a move for. But as we do that, we also want to set up a criteria of how we're going to judge our right wing forward. What is the best right? How do we judge what is the best right wing forward position for Newcastle United? So we're going to look at their goals and assists, their dribbling and take-ons, crossing and accuracy. And you guys can think of Anthony Gordon all the time. What is it that makes not just a right wing forward an ideal right wing forward or right winger for Newcastle United, or I mean a right winger in general, but also a right winger for Newcastle United, and all these attributes you can think of. Obviously, this is on the left-hand side, but it's going to be similar for the right-hand side for Newcastle. They're off the ball movement, their defensive work rate, their pressing, their shooting accuracy, their pass, their chance creation. All these things are going to be the things that we're going to be looking at as we're analysing the best right wing forward, the best right wing player for Newcastle United. And as you guys can see, we've got here Noni Madueke, 22 years old, Chelsea, Michael Elise at 22 years old, Crystal Palace. Obviously, no more Michael Elise Palace. It looks like he's definitely playing for Bayern Munich. I've left him on there because there's a reason why not only Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Newcastle, Liverpool, Man United went for him. And I think it typifies what is the ideal right wing forward position in the Premier League. And I'm gonna use him a little bit to be able to kind of give as a benchmark, as a reference point for what we're looking for. Obviously, also Jarrod Bowen from West Ham is the oldest out of this group of players. 27 is going to be 28 this December. Pedro Neto from Wolves can also play left wing. Brian Mbeumo, the very almost talismanic player for Brentford. Summerville, who had an incredible season in the Championship. I think he was the MVP, or if you can say that, the star player for the Championship. He won an award for that. And obviously now he's going to grace the Premier League. And Morgan Gibbs White, you guys will be asking, what's Morgan Gibbs White doing on here? He's not a right wing forward. He's not a right midfielder. He's an attacking mid. He's a centre mid. All these other things. And so I've put him and actually Summerville in a separate category for Morgan Gibbs White, because I'm thinking about how we can possibly integrate him, and that's what maybe Eddie Howe might go into his thinking. And obviously Summerville, who's also been rumoured, is coming from the Championship, and so when we're looking at stats and figures, not that it's going to be totally skewed, but it's going to be looking at different levels. So I'm going to mainly focus on Madueke, Bowen, Neto, and Brian Mbeumo, but I am going to have a section for Morgan and for Summerville in this video. Guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. I keep forgetting to ask you guys, by the way, but please do. The views are going up each and every time, and I'm really grateful for that. So I want to be able to see the likes reflecting that and the comments reflecting that. Even if you haven't got anything you're thinking real feedback to give, just feel free to say hi, what's good, tune, all those type of things. It'd be great to hear. And obviously these are the categories that we were discussing and we were thinking about. We're also going to add to the categories before I move on, not to forget, important when we're judging what a right wing forward is, or what will be good for us, obviously expected goals and expected assists. So all those additional creative factors that make up a right wing forward. we also have to add context as we're judging these players on these individual stats and figures, because there's two things, well, there's three things. There's a playing style and team tactics. So Madueke, who plays for Chelsea, which is a more possession-based team, is going to have higher things like maybe ball retention and pass completion, as opposed to a Jarrod Bowen, for instance, who plays for a counter-attacking West Ham team. So we have to try and add as much context to these things as possible, and not overly judge the play, like harshly judge the players, but also not be, I guess, overly soft, if that makes sense. We just have to have context. To be able to give the best analysis, the best final evaluation on these players. And obviously, we're going to use Squawka, and this is a bit narrow, but Squawka, we're going to on these so you guys are going to see me put it on Squawka screen, which is going to have all these stats and all these players together. And I'm looking at as we talked about earlier, the criteria, and we've broken it down to appearances, shooting, goals, passes, duels, defense, position, and they all further get broken down into, for instance, on shooting, how many shots have they taken, excluding blocks, what is their shooting accuracy, for instance. And then we'll look at duels, how many duels are they contesting for, even are they going for anything, how many are they winning. And these are criteria that I think are important. If you look at our ideal wingers, if you're looking at Barnes, if you're looking at Anthony Gordon, 6 foot something, athletic players who can take on, who can duel, who can fight for the ball, all these things, but they can also cross, they can also shoot, their position is excellent, they can run, they can press. So all the time we're looking at these stats, all the time we're looking at these figures, we have to not only look at it in context of the players that we're analysing, i.e. Jarrod Bowen playing for West Ham, Madueke playing for Chelsea, but also how would these guys integrate into our playing style, into Newcastle United's playing style. So let's go to Squawka, let's go to start comparing and looking and contrasting and seeing what we can come up with. So let me find this on my screen. Come on, here we go. Stop sharing this screen, share that screen. And I want to be able to be as clear and concise in what I'm saying on this. I don't want to be, is this the right one? Yes. So let me see if you guys can see this on my screen. I have to go backwards and forwards a little bit, but it's all good. Right, excelente. So what you guys can see in front of your screens is this is on Squawka. If you guys go on Google, it's fantastic. If you write Squawka stats, something like that, this will pop up. This will allow you to compare the various players and from the Premier League. Obviously, you see Noni up there, you see Pedro, you see Brian, you see Jarrod. Now, I've used, make sure you guys can see which stats I've been quite selective. I've chosen quite a bit of stats. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to point out the ones that I think are going to be important for the team itself. Let me just highlight real quick. So I'm going to be looking at, if I go to edit stats, it will show you, I'm looking at the active stats, the games played, minute, stats, shot accuracies, passing, all those type of things. So you guys are aware of it. So let me start from just a quick start from the beginning. Again, I'm only going to highlight a few pieces here that I think is going to be important to us. And again, adding context. So obviously right at the top, I've got total, but also got per minute played. Now, for folks that might not know what the difference is, so for instance, Noni Madueke has only played 23 games in comparison to Jarrod Bowen, who's played 34 games. So therefore, when we're judging in terms of how many goals they've scored or assists they've made or possession, it will be it may skew the figures if we just look at it in total, because we might see, wow, Jarrod Bowen's got 3 times or 4 times the amount of goals of Noni Madueke, but we're judging him in comparison to him having 34 games and Madueke having 23 games. Whereas if we judge it per 90, what we're saying per 90 minutes is with all those stats essentially being put into a 90-minute period. So as it says here at the bottom, so the latter provides, which is 90-minute, a per 90-minute average based on the amount of game time recorded by your selected player. So rather than the total kind of games played, i.e. 20 games, 30 games, it will be how many minutes did they spend on the pitch. And that's what we'll be looking at. So I've put it on per 90, but just for the beginning, I want to look at in terms of games played. And this is where we're going to add a little bit of context. Noni's obviously got 23 games played. He's started 13 of those games, which means he was subbed on for 10 of those games, and he was subbed off for 11. So his game time is about 1,000 minutes. He has the least amount of game time compared to everybody else. And we know Chelsea have a lot more players, and their right wing position has been stacked. They nearly got Elise, for goodness sake, and he was going to be, so Noni was going to be sold. Hence why I put him into this. So his snapshot, this is his rookie year in the Premier League. He's played 1,000 minutes. Is going to be different to a Jarrod Bowen, who's a certified one of the main right-wing forwards in the Premier League. Is going to be different. His game time, if you look at Bowen's game time, 34 games played. He's never had to be subbed on because he's never been on the bench. He's been subbed off only 3 times, for instance. So you can see that West Ham are highly, highly reliant on Mr. Bowen in terms of games played. Similarly, or differently actually, for Pedro Neto and Bryan Mbeumo, the reason why they've played 20 games and 25 games is because of injuries. Pedro Neto has had 2 significant injuries in this year alone. His injury record is horrendous, in my opinion. Just in general, if you look at it, it's bad. And Bryan Mbeumo sort of had an injury record as well. But as you can see, they very rarely spend any time on the bench, and they very rarely get taken off as well. So you can see how important they are to their team. So the context around their game time and what they're doing is very, very different. So going back to the per 90 minute, I'm going to highlight a few things before moving on. I want to look at in particularly the shot accuracy. Out of all those teams, per 90 minute, Noni Madueke, for instance, has the better shot accuracy in compared to the other players, but not by much. He's only just beaten Jarrod Bowen, obviously, who's played way more games. And the other shot accuracy isn't bad in terms of 40% plus for Pedro and for Bryan Mbeumo. But it's interesting to see Noni heading that particular area, and you can see all the green side on Jarrod Bowen. He's heavily, let me just put it out there from the beginning, he pretty much beats everyone here on all the stats. He is head and shoulders above Mbeumo, Pedro, and Madueke. He is the elite one out of here, and you guys will find out a little bit later in terms of how I rank him and where I see him as well. Guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as well. Now, as we get down to it, we're looking at the creativity part, chances created. This is now led by Pedro Neto, who's actually got one of the highest assists, even though he's only played about 20-something games. I think he even got injured towards the end of the season. Obviously, he's out now with Portugal as well. But the other guys, so if we're looking at chances per minute, is very likely, for instance, I know that it looks like for Bowen, it's 1. He's very likely to create a big chance for somebody during the game, probably a little bit more as well. And Mbeumo a little bit higher, 2.3 chances for Neto. So he's very, very direct. He loves to get to that byline and cut in as well. He's very, very good. Whereas Noni and Madueke is a lot more lower compared to Pedro, but he is higher compared to Bryan Mbeumo and Jarrod Bowen, which is interesting to see. I would argue, though, they might argue, is that we have a lot less ball possession, and they're much more their teams are much more transitional in comparison to Chelsea and Wolves. However, with the little game time Noni has, it shows that he's got some level of creativity, though maybe not as high as somebody would like. Again, Noni heads the passing accuracy. He plays in the more possession-based side, and the other guy's possession isn't that bad. Pedro, Bryan, Jarrod, these are good. These are decent hold-ups, for instance. The other thing I wanted to look at is obviously forward passing. Bryan Mbeumo really, really heads that again. And he's got obviously Mr. Ivan Toney in front of him. So you can see they've got a really good relationship and in terms of that. And so his forward passing is very, very, very good. Noni's not bad either. And you're going to need that whenever you see Gordon playing, he doesn't just touch the byline. He goes into he goes in a little bit centrally, picks up the ball. He tries to keep his the right back that he's playing against guessing all the time. He'll pick up the ball and he'll try to get it forward to Isak as much and as quickly as possible. We know that, for instance, this is a big reason why Gordon has 10 plus assists this season as well. And so it's going to be a big part of play, forward passing, assist making, chance creation for anybody that comes onto the right wing. And at the moment, obviously, Pedro Neto is kind of heads and shoulders above a few of those guys for that. There's a real kind of end product. There's also interesting to obviously sideway passes, dual passings for Noni. Again, as explained, he has a lot more of the ball because he plays for ball possession side. He also has a higher take on. So he's very good at dribbling. He's very, very good at dribbling, very, very keen to dribble, just like Brian, just like Pedro is as well. I think what the argument is then, after that dribbling, what's the outcome? Are there crosses? Are there goals? Are there assists? And in comparison to Jarrod Bowen, Brian, Pedro, he is on the last of that list. But if he was Noni, you would argue would have played about 500 to 1,000 to 2,500 minutes less compared to some of these guys. And so if I had more game time, I think maybe I can show them my production a little bit more, and I'll be a bit more productive as well. Pretty decent ground use one amongst most of them as well. Noni again heads that. It's very interesting to see that he's got that. And if you see, I think he's reaching about 6 foot as well. So a strong guy. He's willing to fight. He's willing to go forward as well. Also, Jarrod Bowen, Pedro, Brian and Bemo, all strong guys. All of them have real good physicality and are willing to chase the ball, are willing to fight for the ball, and are really good in their ground duels. You can see that also in the ball recoveries, both for Pedro and Noni. All of these are big parts of what it is to be not only a left wing, but a right wing forward for Newcastle United. So if you're looking at these stats, it's very, very interesting to see that the differences in between all of them. I would have to say at this stage, and I know that we haven't seen it just yet, although Pedro Neto seems like probably one of the more creative players, his injury record is something that leaves me very, very vulnerable. Makes me think of him as very, very vulnerable. I don't know if I could rely upon him. Noni Madueke is his rookie year. He's just completed 1,000 minutes in the Premier League. He would say he could have done more. Great dribbling, good ball retention, all these type of things. But compared to Brian and Bemo, Pedro and Jarrod Bowen, the outcome isn't as high as those guys. Jarrod Bowen, obviously 27, about to be 28. He's right at his peak, and he will be a plug and play right wing forward for Newcastle United. You just put him on that right wing forward, and we're going to get 10 plus assists, 10 plus goals in that season alone. I think this season just gone by, it's got like 22, 23 GA already. So if you put that guy in, our total goals, which was about 85 this year, I personally see it going up. If Isak and Gordon continue their form, I see it going up, and Barnes as well, by about 10, 15 goals, goals as well. So it would be great to have Jarrod Bowen at the moment. He, for me, kind of leads at the moment, though Brian Bemo is very, very close. He had an injury this season, but I don't think this is something that's commonplace for him. Right. So where does that leave us? The final thing that we wanted to look at, as I mentioned as well, is the consistency and just to see where these players actually play as well, and how consistency in performance. So let me make sure that I've got you guys on the right screen before I continue on. Otherwise, here we go. So we've got, won't spend too long. The main thing I want to see is how these guys performed over the year. Are they consistent performance? Can Newcastle rely upon them as they did on Anthony Gordon, who played most of the year, for instance, as even Jacob Murphy and others. They've been consistent over the year. Isak as well, despite the injuries. Can we get consistently good performances out of there? And as you can see on his map, he's in every sense a right winger. He hugs that touchline and he comes in. He either crosses or shoots or does the cutbacks as well. And he's not afraid, obviously, to come back and to fight for the ball to help his team, which is a big, massive part of who Newcastle United are. So if we just scroll down quickly, we'll see the average SOFA score rating, which is towards the bottom left of the screen. Now, for most of what have I done there? All right, go back. So for most of the year, he's pretty much 7 and above. Obviously, got injury in December, then came back a few months in October and between December and January, where he just below 7, but mainly he's been performing a 7+ performer, especially somewhere in March where he really kind of began to excel. It's really started to find his feet, especially towards the end of the year. So that's Noni. So I can say that he's a consistent performer. Brian Mbeumo, over the years, also been rated 7.27. You can see his heat map as well. Right wing, striker, can play. Really good positions that Newcastle want. Playmaking, high pressing. If you see his heat map, this is exactly what Newcastle United are looking for in the right wing forward. So if you go down, is he a consistent performer? I think he is, even though he had a quite serious injury where he was out from December to April. He has been consistently a 7+ performer. And obviously, if we look to the side, he did get how many goals this season? He got 9 goals this season, and he has also got 6 assists, so that's 15 goal contributions, and he's played roughly 20+ games as well. And he's a consistent performer. Without that injury, I would say he'll be heading into 20s in terms of goal contributions and everything else. So he's a very, very consistent performer. His output's really good. His work rate's really good. Did I even share this? Oh, excuse me, guys. I didn't share his tab, so you didn't see that. But look, if you guys can see to the right, that's his heat map and positional player, and obviously there's his injury record and everything else. So really, really good stats for Mr. Mbeumo. Pedro Neto, as I mentioned earlier, that's not his real heat map. That's the heat map for Portugal. Let's go into his heat map in the Premier League, which is really good because he plays left wing. He plays all across the front three: striker, left wing, right wing, forward. Even better. And look at his heat map; it reflects that he can play, and he's got the outcomes, i.e., in goals and assists, to show that he can play in those wings and he can produce. Again, pass and playmaking is his strength. He's played only 20 games this season, which is unfortunate. He's scored 2 goals, but I think he's had about 9 assists, excuse me. So 11 goal contributions. And you have to ask yourself, had he been fit for the rest of the year, would he not be heading into Anthony Gordon numbers? And that's playing for a team who are not as good as Newcastle United, I would say, in terms of going forward. Well, stats also show that. How would he play in the Newcastle side? If he didn't have those injuries, I think he would certainly be going in 10+ in assists and goals as well. And as you guys can see on the right, major injuries from October to December, and also from towards the end of February to April through to June. Really, really big injuries. But when he does play, again, he's a consistent performer. Jarrod Bowen, who has played throughout the year, who is healthy. That's not really his heat map there. That's him playing for England. Let's get back to Premier League. This is Jarrod Bowen. Now, he's almost shown everywhere, but if you can see the real heat spots there, so you can see obviously right winger, but he plays everywhere for West Ham. He is a chief creator and playmaker, right winger, shooter, long shots, high pressing is a speciality of his in particular. And what makes him, again, very, very valuable to West Ham is his availability. He is always available. He has played most of the games this season, 16 goals, And how many assists did he get? 6 assists, 22 goal contribution, very similar to Isak and Anthony Gordon. Again, plug and play. He's even older than them. They can learn from him. He's a certified, very good to elite Premier League player, in my opinion. And he will definitely be a roof raiser. He will definitely be a level raiser for Newcastle United. People have this thing about age. He's in his peak. And it was very interesting because Newcastle, he'll be like the first player you can really say who Newcastle have signed at their peak, and for probably will be a peak price as well, if that were to happen. And as you guys can see, he has played throughout the year. Obviously, he had one minor injury somewhere in January, and otherwise, he's always playing 7.5, 7.3, 7.2s out of 10s. He's doing really, really well. His contribution is excellent. His availability is second to none. And he, like I said, he's a certified Premier League player. And this is exactly someone that Eddie Howe would love in the team, in my opinion. I'm going to use this opportunity to also quickly look at Crescencio Summerville. I didn't want to use his stats in the scorecard because, again, he plays for the Championship. I just didn't feel comfortable in kind of comparing to Premier League players and that. And as you guys can see, he's 22 years old. He's shorter than the other guys. He's not as tall, obviously, but he can play left wing and play right wing. He predominantly played left wing. I think he played left wing nearly all the games for Leeds in the Championship season. And you can see exactly how he loves to play, hugging that touchline or coming in central and just being an absolute nuisance to defenders, scoring goals, making assists. Yeah, like I said, he's had a top year. He's played 43 games. He started 41 of those games, 19 goals, which is absolutely incredible, and 9 assists, which makes him 28 goal contribution. Those are stats that scream, I am ready for the Premier League. So even if Leeds didn't get into the Premier League, did Leeds get into the Premier League? They didn't get into the Premier League. Sorry, they didn't get into the Premier League. My apologies. He's a man who's ready for the Premier League. Somebody's going to pick him up. Brighton are looking at him. I think Newcastle are said to be making some inquiries. Let's see what that says. And if you can look at his performance stats, are absolutely phenomenal. He's very much average. I think, what has he averaged? Is it 7.7 throughout the year? What did he average? Nearly 7.8. In terms of performances out of 10, 8.6 in August, 7.7 ending towards the year, in the middle in December, January, where it's very hot, lots of games, 8.0, 7.7, 7.8. So he's really, really, really come through big for his team, and he's played an incredible year. He's ready for the Premier League. Whether this form translates from the Championship to the Premier League waits to be seen, but he is absolutely ready. The other question is playing left wing. Can he do this on the right wing as well? If he could, and he can translate into the Premier League, and Newcastle can get in there early, they may have a start on their hands. But there's a lot of coulds, shoulds, and maybes if you compare him to Jarrod Bowen and, for instance, Mbeumo, who are certified Premier League proven players. The other player I wanted to show before ending this is obviously Morgan Gibbs White. Morgan Gibbs White, who is not a right winger naturally. Yes, I understand he's a midfielder, attacking midfielder, striker. He, as you can see from his heat map, plays absolutely. His heat map is very similar to Bruno Guimaraes's. He plays absolutely everywhere, and that's because of his talent and skill on the ball, on the half turn, on back to goal, dribbling, passing, technique, receiving the ball, passing the ball, dictating play. He is the only one that can do all of those things in the Nottingham Forest. Out of most players outside of the top 6, he is probably one of the most technically sound, technically gifted players outside of the Premier League. So, and they've absolutely, and he's good at tackling. He's good at pressing. He works very, very, very hard for the team. All these qualities that Eddie Howe loves, and he is available. 36 games played, 35 games started. He's scored 5 goals, and how many assists did he get? He got 10 assists, so 15 goal contribution whilst playing everywhere on the pitch is absolutely incredible. So not only defending but attacking, he's been managing. He's in my view, did he carry Nottingham Forest? If he didn't carry Nottingham Forest, he certainly dragged them, in my opinion. And this is why I think Eddie Howe would look at him. Now, obviously, as people have said, he's not a right winger. And you can see from this, I'll go back to this again, consistent performer, 7 point plus throughout the year. In fact, he gets better as the year goes on. He's not a right winger naturally. What I think, if you get a Morgan Gibbs White, if you can't get the other guys, I think it signifies a change when Newcastle are looking for a number 10. I think we'll see Newcastle playing a 4-4-2 out of possession and go into a 4-4-3 when in possession and on the attack. And that's where a key man like Morgan Gibbs White, who can link the defense can link the midfield to attack, will be absolutely key. He can start from a central position where he's defending, going behind Isak, and then going into the right-hand side when collecting the ball, being that extra outlet, but also maybe drifting in, being a constant menace and playing across the front three. He won't have to play like he does for Nottingham Forest and be everything and do everything, because we've got Bruno Gomes, we've got Joe Linton, we've got Tonali, we've got those guys. He can just focus on that attacking central midfield area and going into the right side. And I think he could be absolutely lethal in terms of creativity and goals scored. So that is my take on the players that are there and the kind of my explanation of all the players that are available. Let me come off the screen and give my final review in terms of who Newcastle should go for. And out of all the players that are available, wow, 31 minutes. For all of you guys that I've heard that have hung on, God bless you. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to do so. And I will give you guys my final analysis on everything on these players going forward, who Newcastle would go for. Let me stop sharing the screen. In terms of priority and where things are at. I was hoping to kind of explain a bit about Elise, but you can just imagine he's absolutely fantastic. He's record. So let me put my screen up. All right, folks. So good. You guys can see my screen now. Let me just make sure. Right. So I think Newcastle United will have a priority list. And obviously, the top row is first tier priority, second tier priority, third tier priority. It's not necessarily in this order. Obviously, Elise is no longer there. He's a Bayern Munich player. We received media reports a few weeks ago that Jarrod Bowen, together with Calvert-Lewin, who's come up today in June 22nd, were on top of the list. Now, some of you folks, I'm not going to go into can we get this player, can we not get that player. I will speak a little bit about it. He's got, a 7-year contract, 5-year contract, 7-year contract with West Ham. He's married to Danny Dyer's daughter. Why would he move? Well, Moyes has recently moved. He's got a new manager now. It's not going to be the same. He's going to be asking, what is the ambitions of West Ham? Newcastle United's ambitions are very, very clear from the top down, and that's to be number one. Bowen is at his peak now, and maybe Newcastle are one of the few clubs who can afford to take him on and are on the upward trajectory. Also, West Ham were backing on selling Lucas Paqueta. I'm not going to say whether they're in financial troubles. I hate when people say about Newcastle are in financial troubles and they have no clue about our financial situation. All I can say is that West Ham were prepared to sell Paqueta, and they may have more likely had transfer plans behind that. Now they can't sell Paqueta because of the obvious troubles outside of football. And if someone like Newcastle will come along and say, here's 60 mil for Bowen, is that something they just throw away out of hand? I don't think so. And is it an offer, an opportunity that Bowen just says, would I love West Ham, I'm not going to move on? I don't think so. I think there's a chance that we can get him. And out of all the players that we've spoken about, in my view, we should definitely aim for him as a number one target. If we don't get him, there'll be other targets that we're looking at. And I think the next up, and we've heard rumors around this, obviously, Mbeumo, who's also been chased by Liverpool. He suits our system to a T. Can play from the right wing forward, striker, strong, powerful, has end product, plays for the team, as certified Premier League player, is an Eddie Howe type of player, and you can see him playing alongside Isak and Gordon. Makes a very formidable, strong, athletic, intelligent front three team as well. And I think he'll be the second choice behind Bowen. The other, obviously, Neto. I've got Neto there after him, but I'm not confident in his injury record. And so I can see why Newcastle are also speaking to Crescencio Summerville and are probably willing to take that risk on a younger player who's never played in the Premier League over a Neto. If they do go for Neto, they're taking a big risk on his injury record. And they must, after the injury season that we've had, I'll be very surprised that Newcastle are backing themselves to make sure that this guy can play, that Neto can play throughout the year. If Neto can play throughout the year, he can definitely get the same numbers, goal contribution as assists, as Anthony Gordon can. If that were to be it, again, will make a formidable front three. I'll put Morgan Gibbs White and Madueke towards the end. Madueke is still relatively unproven, but I believe there's a player in there. I think you're taking a much more bigger chance and risk on him because you don't know if he plays those minutes, is he going to be what's going to come out, compared to a Crescencio who's now played 40 plus games in the English league and has shown himself to be more than ready for the Premier League, in my view. Morgan Gibbs White, though I love him and he will be my preferred choice after Bowen, I can see why an entire system change or an adaptation may not be the first thing that Eddie Howe and the coaching staff will be looking for, and there might be other players that are more likely that Newcastle would want. So to summarize, I think Bowen and Mbeumo will be the players that will be ideal for Newcastle. A lot more risk on Neto, a lot more risk on Crescencio, and an almost a system change from Morgan Gibbs White, but I think will be fruitful and change Newcastle on a different team. Let me know what you guys think. What's your view on this? Who would you put? Who would be your number 1, 2, and 3 in terms of right wing forwards going forward? Who have we not considered? What other players? Is it Mateus Sewell? Is it Sabri? Who is it? Let me know, guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, as always, take care and God bless, folks.
Brilliant from Sham. And now Murphy can take on the shot.